Warm greetings to all participants across the globe and across time zones to Ask the Expert, powered by LBN People's Podium and All Ladies League. I am Meghalai Sendil Kumar from LBN Tech Solutions, and I am the host for today. Welcome to the 25th edition of Ask the Expert. Yes, it's a Silver Jubilee edition of Ask the Expert series, and I take this opportunity to thank all the speakers who have graced the stage, and as well as all the participants and so many regulars here. Thank you so much. You've always supported me with your presence. The Tokyo Olympics has just concluded, and this is the best time to interact with sportsmen who are leaders in their respective fields. And for this Ask the Expert webinar, we are very fortunate to have with us Mr. Sharath Kamal and Mr. M.V. Sriram, both of whom have represented India at the Tokyo Olympics. Welcome, both of you. Sharath Kamal Achanta is undoubtedly the most popular name in the sport of table tennis in India. He has been the flag bearer of the Indian table tennis since 2002, winning over 60 international medals in the span of 16 years, of which 9 are Commonwealth Games medals and 2 Asian Games medals. He has won the national championships for a record-breaking 9 times and represented India at 4 Olympic Games, 2004, 2008, 2016, and 2021, which by itself is no mean feat. In recognition to his contribution in the field of table tennis, the Government of India has conferred him with the Padma Shri Award in 2019. Sharath Kamal is a senior official at the Indian Oil Corporation, Southern Region. Happy to have you here, Sharath. LBN People's Podium is honored to have you. And our second speaker of the day is Mr. M.V. Sriram, the current Secretary General of the Rowing Federation of India, 2020-2024. This is the 8th year Sriram is holding this distinguished post. Sriram, after competing in the rowing events at the 1982 Asian Games, went on to have a long and distinguished career in the management of various rowing associations. He's also a qualified national umpire and a World Rowing Federation coach. His in-depth experience as a sportsman and administrator makes him an invaluable resource for anyone wanting to know more about sports and sportspersons. Sriram is also a serial entrepreneur, and he has started 4 companies. He has ideated and brainstormed machine design, which is his passion area, and he likes to dabble in very new areas and come out successfully. He has got the success in him. He takes it as a challenge. So happy to have you here, Sriram. Having 2 distinguished international level sports persons and administrators here with us today presents a rare opportunity to gain a better understanding of not just the sports of table tennis and rowing, but of the systems and mechanisms of international sporting competitions, the impact they have on sporting performances, and the ways to maximize performance in international events. Apart from representing India at the Tokyo Olympics, both the sportsmen have a common thread. Guess what? Both of them are alumni of PSVB Chennai. So happy to have you as alumni of PSVB. There are lots of PSVBians here in this webinar. So both the experts present here today have made the school as well as the nation proud. Nothing can ever be achieved without the support of the family. That everybody knows, and both Sharath and Sriram have had tremendous support from their families. And moderating the session is Radhika Nair, Manager Corporate Communications, Indian Oil Corporation. Radhika has several years of experience handling such events, and I'm sure that this session is going to be really, really interesting under her moderation. Radhika is a multifaceted personality, a thorough professional, and she's also a great dancer. And I've had the good fortune of seeing one of her recitals a few years ago. So over to you, Radhika. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So thank you so much, first of all, for this wonderful introduction of these 2 brilliant personalities from the field of sports, whom we have today with us, Sharath and Sriram sir. So let us, the moderated session, we'll move on to the session, and we'll start with Sriram sir first. So Mr. M.V. Sriram, Secretary General, Rowing Federation of India. Sir, you have been in the sport for like n number of years now, and it's a sport that dates back to the British era. So can you just start this conversation by telling us about what exactly rowing is and how is it different from other water sports like canoeing, kayaking, yachting, or sailing?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me and the lovely introduction of Meghalai. She's said it all. And I feel honored to be amongst yourself, amongst everybody to share a few thoughts of mine. It's been a very long journey for me. And finally, it's come to a culmination and me going to the Olympics. That's the first time I went. I've been to 5 Asian Games before, but this was my first Olympics. To start with, the difference is all the three are water sports. And the difference starts and stops there. In rowing, we propel the boat backwards. We face the start and not the finish when we race. And the boat moves with human effort. Legs, back, shoulders, and arms are used. In kayaking and canoeing, we face the finish or we propel the boat forward. And the boat moves mainly by use of muscles in the upper body. The lower body is not used. And sailing, as you all know, takes place in big lakes, dams, or in the sea. And it is a lot of skill and strategy where you purely depend on the wind and the breeze and the currents and the water currents to plan your race and plan your movements. So this is the very big difference between all the three water sports. But most of the reporters and most of the press still don't know that this is the difference. So when they go reporting, they use one word for the other and mess up everything. And finally, you don't get the desired result. That's where it stands.
That's very true, sir. Like even I was thinking initially, I used to think that canoeing is what rowing is. Then since you told, like, yes, there is a difference. Sir, can you tell me, since you told that even the media is not aware about the difference between various water sports, can you tell me how popular is rowing in India?
To tell you the truth, rowing is not very popular, but it is slowly gaining popularity from the public and the government. The fact that we are an Olympic discipline, the fact that we have been to 5 Olympics itself speaks very great about our sport. So the government's waking up. The government now knows that by investing in our sport, there is a result and there's something which is possible. Whereas even very popular sports in India don't find themselves qualified for Olympics. And rowing is confined basically to the metros, a few towns, and its spread is constrained mainly because of good waterway close to habitation and enormous cost of equipment. None of these equipments are made in our country. We need to import them. And with the dollar cost and the constraint of money, spreading this sport is not very easy. There are challenges. That is one reason why it's not very popular.
Okay. So since you said it is mostly popular in the metros and you are from Chennai, which are the places where this is played in Chennai?
I started off in the Madras Boat Club. That's closest to my home. So in Madras, there are 2 places where you can row. One is the boat club, Rajanamalapuram. Another place is inside Ramachandra Medical College. That's a new facility which has come up. You can send your children there to row, to start rowing. So these 2 places are presently available.
Okay, so now we can ask your personal connect with rowing. So when did it all started? Like for you, when did you start rowing, and what is the actual inspiration behind joining this sport particularly?
Well, my family doesn't have a great sports tradition. My father did play hockey for Kerala Varma College in Trichy, and he did his BCom. That's about what I got from my gene. In school, as usual, we do many sports activities during our PTR. After school, I used to hop from one sport to the another, what each one of us had to offer. I've been in table tennis, I've been in tennis. Finally, I landed in rowing. Thanks to Mauli, whose cousin was a member of the boat club. We went to his home one day and discussed about the NBC, which was a very exclusive old British club. Hardly anybody is let into the club because at the entrance there is a watchman who shoos you away. But somehow we found, because of our passion, we found the guts to get in, and the captain allowed us into as a member. That's where it started, and that was in December 1975.
Okay, sir, you have played different roles in the field of rowing. You have been a player, you have been a coach, you have been an administration, like right now you are an administrator. So how are these roles different, and which is your favorite one amongst them?
Actually, when you look at it, I've not been a very big player. My friends have gone on to win very big medals. My friends have known himself as a national champion. But my physique and my capabilities and my physical constraints, I could at the board win junior races in the club, go up to the senior level and do well in local club races. Beyond that, it was not possible. So all I had to do was I became a cox. Cox is a person who steers the boat. And from a cox, I graduated to a coach, because to be a coach in those days, it is not a place where you can go and learn in a school or in a class. It has to be only learned by listening to some other coach. So I graduated as a coach by listening to my other peer coaches who were coaching teams. And then from being a coach, I got sucked into being an administrator, because I was there for so long. I was in the place, and so many of my friends, for their economic reasons, had left the club by then. They had moved on in their lives. They had gone abroad to study or to work. But my work was in Chennai itself. That's where my future. That's where my future was centered on. So because of my propensity to the club and being there for so long, and being whatever capable, they pulled me into from one place to the other. That's how I got into administration.
Sir, being the administrator of the Indian team, which represented like India in the Olympics at Tokyo. So, what are the high points of your sports administration till now?
High points, many high points, but what stands out really is when I was a Secretary General in my previous term. This is my third term. I am a Secretary General of the Rowing Federation. One term was for 4 years. I have already completed 8 terms, 8 years, that is 2 terms. And then as per the sports code, you have to take a break of 4 years, which I did. Then I've again come back as a Secretary General for the third term, just 20 to 24. In my previous term, I was in Guangzhou. India won the first gold medal in the Asian Games 2010. This was after a drought of 34 years. We started in 1976 as a federation. We have never touched gold medal. We have always been winning silvers, bronzes, but not a gold. But the first time we won a gold, and I was a Secretary General, I was present there in the race, and I was there watching it all happen. That was a very high point for me. Another very important one is where Sharath was also there in Colombo. I was a manager of the India team in South Asian Games, Colombo. It was not an easy game to attend, because there was a TTA threat and there was gunmen all over, and we were escorted from the hotel to the rowing venue and back. And in that championship, we won all the 7 gold medals. It was a clean sweep for India. And I was an administrator and a manager, and it was a moment for me to cherish. These two stand out in all the so many things which I've done in life.
Okay. Sir, especially after this good performance by the team in Tokyo, how do you see the sports would grow in the country?
Well, it's like this. There's always this initial euphoric reaction which comes after seeing the TV. And since the reach of media is so widespread now in our country, so everybody wants to know what is going, what is about, where do you buy it, how do I join? And after a few months or a week, the reality button hits you, and then they find out that there are very few places to go and train. And taking it to the next step is a very big challenge. We are constantly thinking and working on them. We need huge government support, because private players really don't come and sponsor us, because we are not of this. And with the private help alone, it's extremely difficult to take this forward to the next level.
Sir, so are there any big ticket events waiting in the pipelines?
For us, what is now waiting is a BeamStech Youth Water Sports Festival in Bhopal. BeamStech is a Bay of Bengal rim countries, where under the Prime Minister's initiative, when he had a meeting in Kathmandu last time, he had suggested that we conduct a water sports festival, which was in 2019. Mm-hmm. Because of COVID, it got postponed. Now we are planning it in November 2021, where countries from Thailand, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, all the Bay of Bengal rim countries come and participate. Okay. The next very big event for us is the Asian Games in Hangzhou, China.
Okay.
That's in September 2022. Team is already training. Camps are already on. So that's the mix. Actually, so many events are taking place simultaneously. Another thing is my girl from an Indian who's participating in a World Coastal Championship in Portugal,
Okay.
which is coming up in the next 3 months. She is also proceeding. So these are events which we are managing now to the paperwork and everything to see that things happen properly.
Okay. Sir, what would be your message for the future players who would like to join rowing?
Well, the first thing which I would like to say is go out and play. Just an odd medal here or there is not it's just a small beginning. If you analyze, we have been doing well in individual sports, rarely in team events. Individual efforts and brilliance really stand out in our country, but collectively, when we get together, we flounder and fall. The culture and the ecosystem towards has to change. In India, still it is studies, work, marriage, settle down. That is the route which is ingrained in us. And if this roadmap has to change, our parents have to come in. A sport ecosystem has to improve. More people must get into the ring. Robust training methods and selection of talent must be in place to instill confidence in the sports. It's a very long journey. Maybe we are still taking baby steps forward. That's my assessment after being here for 41 years.
Sir, so to conclude this to and fro with you, sir, share your experience in Tokyo, sir. Of course, there was a huge felicitation function in Delhi on 15th of August. So can you just share your experience?
Well, I went as an NOC delegate after my event was over.
Okay.
I was managing my event, the press, and the strategy sitting in Chennai. After our event was over and the team got ready to come back, I went to Tokyo. So it is not that I was there in Tokyo and the race is there. First thing. And I was sent basically as to observe because there's so much to learn. We are hardly anywhere close to conducting such big events. Commonwealth Games was an amazing experience for us. It was so well conducted, leave alone the controversies. But if you look at it as a games and the way it was conducted, it is as good as a Asian Games and as good as a mini Olympics. It's not that we are incapable, but somewhere because of the freedom which we have, the press as well as everybody else, we flounder and we mess up things. But if you look at it, it's not that it's impossible for us to conduct things. So I was there basically to see. Japan, as we know, is a country where there's perfection everywhere. The perfection to the extent that it makes you so embarrassed. It's not easy for us to emulate it. If you look back, all the best brands in the world are from Japan. So for me, the way I look at it is from the technical side rather than from the real sporting side when I go after the event is over. Everything is so picture perfect. The way it is. Like everything has a place and everything is in its place. So to come to that level of excellence, in a situation of COVID where volunteers were not very welcome, were very willing to come. And if you see the volunteer, so many old people, retired people. Japan has a lot of old people. The maximum old people are there in Japan. But the effort and the volunteer, and the spirit to volunteer was amazing. At every junction point, wherever there are people who are there to help, and you'll find an old man or an old lady who would have taken time off from her home, very, very, very enthusiastically come and do something. And that was something which really hit me. What else, about Tokyo? Tokyo is Tokyo in the sense, it will take a very long time for us to perfect things the way it is there.
Thank you so much, Sriram sir, for those all the questions answered very perfectly, and we could get to know more about rowing from you. Thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this session. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we move on to the 9-time table tennis national champion, the Commonwealth Game medalist, the Asian Game medalist, the golden boy or the flag bearer of table tennis in India, Padma Shri Achanta Sharath Kamal. Hi Sharath, good evening.
Hi everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here on this platform. And hello, Sriram sir. Nice to meet you. Yeah, actually, I've heard about him, but I think this was the first time I met him on the 15th of August when we were both in Delhi. So really great personality. It was and now when I heard about his exploits as a player, as an administrator, as a coach, it's really fantastic that somebody has been there for the sport all the while. So, and also there was also one more point I felt like when the high points when he said like Asian Games when they won the gold. I think also this Olympic Games finishing 11th, finishing 5th in the final B second race was really fantastic. The rowers were making a lot of noise, as the Indian contingent for the Indian contingent. So I think the sport itself, many sports in India, we are actually going ahead and ahead.
Yeah, Sharath, I was actually about to ask you, like, from where we left with Sriram sir, like, what were your experiences in Tokyo and the Delhi felicitation program on 15th August?
Personally, for me, Tokyo Olympics was one of the best. More so because, during the pandemic, if somebody could organize it so systematically, I think it can only be Japan. There's no doubt about that. And from the situation how we had gone in from India due to the second wave of the corona thing about lockdowns, and we were not able to train, and we didn't know if the Olympics will go on. And then you go in there, you see how well things are organized and everything is under control. Every day we were being tested, and all the protocols were maintained to the highest order. So that gave us a lot of confidence that yes, we can just focus on the sport, and we don't have to be worried about anything else. So I think a lot of mindset change once we reached there, and once we started training there. So this experience at the Olympic Games, I think this was one of the best. And with the prime ministers and presidents interaction on the 15th of August, they really had an elaborate celebration. August 14th, we met the president at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. August 15th, we were at the Independence Day celebrations at Red Fort. And 16th of August, we were at the Prime Minister's residence, and he nearly spent 2.5 hours with all of us. I think the kind of encouragement and the motivation, the let's say the top management from the country is giving is really encouraging all of us. And at the same time, it's putting sport in a spotlight, which is encouraging a lot of youngsters also to go in this direction, pick sport as a career, and the right kind of exposure is given to most of the sports these days. And I think this Olympic Games is one of the most watched Olympic Games for India. I think nobody has seen so much of sport. A lot of people have seen new sports, and they could see a lot of their sporting stars play, which in the recent times not many could actually see so much. So I think thanks to the government's motive, like not just our post we came. I think even before we went into the Olympic Games, the Prime Minister had spoken to most of the athletes, and then that put us on the spotlight. So I think that's also the reason why a lot of sports were being watched at the Olympic Games this time from India.
Yeah, Sharath, you just told that people should pick table tennis as a career. For you, when it is, it's up to you. You are like your relationship with table tennis. It's a childhood one, actually, a game that grew into you from your own family. So, can you just tell us about the moment when you decided that yes, table tennis is the way in which I would like to make a difference in my life?
I think playing table tennis, or being introduced to table tennis, I didn't have a choice. My parents were, my father was my coach, so he was already coaching before I was born. So at the age of 3, at the age of almost 3 or 4, I was in the club. You know, he used to take me along, and that's the same he's doing with my son also. My father is still taking my son there. My son is just 4 years old now. He's almost at the club, you know, quite often. Yeah, I got introduced to the sport at a very early age. But then I was playing it. I was not very good, for a long time. Slowly and steadily, I was doing well at the state level, but never good at the national level. I never played for the country when I was, at a younger age. The first time I played for the senior national team or the Indian national team was when I was 20 years old. So that's actually pretty late for, for any player to actually represent the country. But for me personally, it was I was in my 10th standard, going into my 11th standard. That was when I decided I will take the sport professionally, because that was the age when I had to decide science or commerce, sports, or the academic career, wherein most of my cousins were taking up science and going up to the US. So that's the kind of trend, especially in the south of India. That's how it is. So I had, my parents didn't force anything on me, so they let me decide. And I wanted to play table tennis. And I think back then, to support that decision was, was not normal. But then, we didn't have two thoughts about it. We never felt, or at least there were doubts if I will make it big or not, but never a regret saying that, okay, why did we even decide to go into playing table tennis. So I think that's something where we were very we as a family strongly believed that we should be doing this professionally.
So from your words, it's very clear that your family had been your support system all the way. So what are your parents like? Of course, your dad is a coach, and so his view would be very clear about table tennis and all. What about your mother and your wife, your kids?
For my mother, it was more or less like, she wanted me to go in the academic way, but I didn't. I decided otherwise. But there was never a day where she felt like, or she came up to me and said, "Yeah, why don't you think about studies and stuff?" The support was, just unconditional. It was just going on and on. I think maybe also because it probably ran in the family, because my father is my coach, and I wanted to play the sport, so maybe my mother didn't have an option. And I think that's the same thing that happened to my wife also. So she doesn't know anything about the sport. We got married, and I just continued playing. But I think without the support of the family, both as my parents and post marriage, my wife, I don't think I could have had such a long career. And I think Sriram sir will also agree to this, that for any sports person, when the family is there to take care of a lot of things at home, I can completely concentrate on the sport, on my profession. So that way I've been quite lucky, that my family has always backed me up, and continuing to do so, even though, there are times at home and they feel like, okay, when will you get back home? When will you when will you have a normal life? But still, that's something.
Yeah, recently there was a post by you in Instagram. Like, I guess it was on Mother's Day or something, that you have posted a photograph with your mother, and you have written that, your mother always asks you, when will you stop playing and be with me?
She started this back in 2008. 7 and 8, when I was already in Europe for 4 years, and I was not spending much time home. And prior to that, since 2001, I've been traveling. So already in 2008, she was asking, it's enough. You come back now. Just stay home and, be like a normal guy. But it's almost been 20 years and I'm still on the road. These are sacrifices which many times people are seeing what we are doing, what we are achieving, but they forget to see that there's so much of sacrifice done, not just by the sports person, but by the whole ecosystem that surrounds the player. So there's so much that goes in, and there are so many losses and so many ups and downs that go through a sportsman's career. And yeah, I think the final, let's say, encouragement, or the boost what you get is when you win that medal and the national anthem goes up. That's the only reason I think why everybody ends up in tears. I don't know why you end up in tears. Even personally for me, when I look at it, you don't get so emotional, but then that very moment you get so emotional because everything comes back, and the whole country is actually looking up to you. So that's something which is very special as a sports person.
Indeed, Sharath. So, Sharath, you had played a lot of world tournaments. So, except for the Olympics, which one is your most favorite and most memorable one? And tell us why.
I think the Commonwealth Games, both in 2006 and 2018, both were in Australia. They were both really very good because first time I won a gold in 2006 as an underdog. Nobody knew me. Even the IOA officials were like, "Hey, who's this Sharath Kamal, who's going on winning a few medals for the country and stuff." And then 2018 we go on to repeat it. These two tournaments have been very, very memorable for me. But I think the best thing that has happened is the 2018 Asian Games, where first time in 62 years we won a bronze. I won 2 bronze medals, one in the men's team and one in the mixed doubles. I think that was something which is, that medal is something which I still cherish till date, because winning at the Asian Games is almost equivalent to winning at the Olympic Games for us in table tennis. So, and that also gives us the confidence that we can do well at the Olympic Games too. So we went in with that hope that at this Olympic Games probably we will get a medal. But yeah, time is asking me to wait. So hopefully 2024 we'll get there.
Paris.
Yes.
So, when talking about Tokyo, that your map, the victory against Thiago from Portugal, that perfect forehand shot, which just made Thiago stunned. Like the expression on his face was like nothing of that, like, "Oh, acha, I lost to Sharath." It was like he was impressed, quite impressed by that shot. So, what is, when you stand in front of the table, what is that instinct that hits you, or rather, how do you decide on how to take on the opponent?
See, I think there are there are different ways to go into tournaments as preparation. For me personally, preparing for this Olympic Games was something very, very special. It was I had a lot of time thanks to the COVID breaks. There were not so many tournaments. I could sit down, prepare myself, and generally I do well at the big matches. Let's say the Commonwealth Games, Asian Games, now the Olympic Games and the World Championships. These are matches which I look forward for because I love the pressure that's on those big matches, and over the period of time I've understood how to handle that pressure and deliver better in those crux situations. So the match against Thiago also, Thiago Apollonia from Portugal, I've lost to him for the last 15 years. I beat him in 2006. Since then, I've only lost to him. I've lost to him in the World Cup. I've lost to him in world ranking tournaments. I've lost to him in Bundesligas. I've also lost to him in the Indian Table Tennis League. It's Ultimate Table Tennis League. So I've lost to him everywhere. So the only thing what was in my mind was, okay, this time at the Olympic Games is going to be my day when I'm going to win against Thiago, and this win will erase all the history that I've lost to him. So that was how the mentality I went into the match. So doesn't matter, I've lost to him a lot of times before, but when I win here today, that's going to be the most important win. So you could see that intent in that match and also in the next match against Malong. So it was more or less like I felt like, okay, I'm going to go into this match. I'm going to treat this match as a 50-50 match. Doesn't matter who my opponent is. I could be a favorite. I could be not the favorite. But I want to treat every match that I go into the Olympic Games as a 50-50 because the match starts at 0-0. everybody has the equal chance of getting it. So I don't want to take any history into the tournament, into the matches, and go on from there. So that was where I could actually bring in confidence playing against Thiago, and that continued to go against the defending champion and the current champion Malong also.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that only. Like, when the lots were taken, I know that Indian team was put into a tough slot with, China and Portugal and all those teams in there. So after the game against Ma Long, people were talking more about you than Ma Long. And in an interview, you were heard saying that even if I lose too long, he should earn each point of his. And so, how was that experience, like taking on the reigning Olympic champion?
Yeah, as you said, the draw could have been a bit better. Unfortunately, that's how it is. It's a lottery, and I ended up playing the top seed in the third round itself. I could have got anybody else and had this round match against Malong a few rounds later also. But it was like this. So for me personally, I just told myself that yes, he is the best player. I haven't won a set against him until now, but this match, it's going to be my best match. I'm going to give my best, and if he needs to win this match against me, he needs to play good and take it off. I'm not going to give him any points for free, and I'm going to make him earn every point. So even when I was towards the end, when I was losing and clearly he was starting to be better, I still kept myself telling myself that no, make him earn every point, try and get there. It's okay, even if you're losing. So I think that intent, that attitude which I brought onto the table, that is what a lot of people are talking about. So that is where I stood a chance to actually beat. Okay, it was 1-1, and third set I had a very fair chance on beating him, and that was when he went pale with the kind of pressure
He
that
started
was.
trembling.
Yeah, and he was doing a lot of self-talk, and he took the timeout to break the momentum. So there are a lot of things that was I could clearly see, and that actually made me nervous. I felt like, oh, I have a chance now against him. Come on, let's convert it. And then I made a few mistakes. But yeah, that's I made those mistakes because I'm playing against world number one. I would not generally make those mistakes against anybody else, because I would still take my time in playing the shots. But against him, you feel like when you take your time, he gets too much time. You have to put that pressure, and that was the reason why he was having that pressure, because I was not taking any time. I was going very early. I was going for the shots. There was no doubt from my side, so that put him on a back foot. So when people recollect that match, it's more or less like, oh wow, that Sharath Kamal was let's say the warrior or the fighter who went into that match and gave everything that he can. And that very attitude made everybody in India believe that yes, we can take on the best in the world. It was more a message that everybody felt confident, and everybody took it to the positive that yes, if Sharath Kamal is able to do this, we all can do that.
So Sharath, after such days or such matches, the next day would be totally different. So how was yours after Malong episode?
When I still have the video where I lost the match. I came out, I shook hands with my coach, and I just sat down on the coach's chair and I put my towel on my head, and I was like completely down. Like my head was almost probably, I buried myself. I was like an ostrich. My head was inside the ground. And the coach was like, he was just patting me and he was going on and on. Wow, what a match, man! How did you play? Fantastic. And I'm like, I'm on the other side of the spectrum where I'm feeling so bad. I've lost this match. I had my chances. I couldn't convert it. And 3 hours later, I came back to the room and saw my phone. And when I saw the messages on my WhatsApp and my Instagram and my social media and everywhere, that's when I actually knew what kind of an impact I'd made to people who had watched the match. So that made me really proud. That was when I felt, yes, okay, fine. I've done my part. There is completely no regret as far as this Olympics is concerned, because I did my preparation as I can do, the best I could do. I was in the best physical shape. I was in the best mental shape, and I had the best performance on that day. The result, yes, it could have gone either ways, but personally from my side, I've done my best, and that in turn actually has trickled down to the whole table tennis fraternity into the country on how we can take on the world.
So, what was the best thing in the Olympic Village? Of course, you met Djokovic after exactly next day of your match, I guess. So, how was what were the best things there?
I think the best thing was still you talking to the Indian hockey guys, the women team, and Sindhu. Of course, PV Sindhu, she was going on for a quarterfinal match against Yamaguchi, and we met her in the dining hall. She's just so relaxed. Generally, when you have an important match, and she's playing, she generally has a very bad track record against Yamaguchi from Japan at the quarterfinals. So generally, she has a bad track record. But then she was pretty much relaxed. The way she was still talking to us felt like any normal day, any other normal day where it's. So that was where I clearly felt like this is one player who is she's enjoying that pressure. She just likes to be in that stage where there's a lot of pressure and still being able to deliver her best. So hats off to the way, because in Rio she has already delivered, and she comes in here as with a lot of expectations, and still handling all those expectations, going into a quarterfinal match against a player who you don't generally like to play. I think the attitude is fantastic, and that's something what I learned, at my fourth Olympic Games.
So, you were saying fourth Olympic Games, like in 2004, you went to Athens, and after 17 years now in Tokyo, like fourth Olympic Games that you're participating in. So, if you compare you as a player in 2004 Athens and now in 2021 in Tokyo, how would you compare yourself?
2004, I was more a tourist. I was just I just go there. I was just happy to see of course, yeah, my world ranking was 200 in the world. I didn't know what's happening. I just qualified. I just they just told it's a world rank. It's a Olympic qualification tournament. I went in there. I qualified. Then they say everybody says, okay, we're going to the Olympics. I didn't know what Olympics meant back then. It was in 2008 when I actually understood what the whole world thinks about Olympics, how they prepare for it, how how the goals are set 4 years ago, and how the training process starts. So over the period in time, I've clearly understood how to get the best out of yourself for big matches like this, and that's something which can clearly transcend to the next generations, because it took me a long while to understand this. But I think for the next generations to come, it should be quite easier because of the experience of the seniors. I think that's again one more thing what Sriram sir would also agree, that back then when in his days, how difficult was it to be a sports person, to be inspired from your seniors, because you don't get to watch them. There are not so many tournaments, and from there to the kids these days, there's so much of exposure. So I think the difference between 2004 and 2021 is I've become a lot more aware of myself, on my ability to train, ability to compete, ability to have my mental conditioning. So I've got all the experience, and if I'm able to keep myself physically fit and stay motivated, I think this is the best thing I can do as a sports person.
Yeah, about the being physically fit part of it. I read somewhere that during this COVID times you were into yoga, which actually helped you improve your flexibility and stuff. So because before the Olympics it was lockdown and all those stuff. So how did it impact your training performance and the game?
During the first wave, COVID wave, there was a complete lockdown. We didn't know, the break was also pretty long. So home workouts were, we were just doing our simple home workouts and stuff. And that was when I got back to yoga. I used to do a lot of yoga during my school days and little bit into college days. But since I started traveling into Europe and everything, I lost touch with yoga. So I came back, I got back into yoga, and that actually helped me improve on my physical, well-being, and also on the mental well-being. So I could clearly see mentally there was more space around myself. I could clearly was able to handle pressure in a better way, stress in a better way. So I thought, yes, this is something which I should be continuing. I didn't know why I stopped this. And apart from yoga, and also we got down into some specific fitness training regimes, which was very, very apt only for myself, for my sport, and specifically for myself, depending on my height and my history of playing and my injuries. So yoga was an important and essential part of my training regime for the Olympic Games.
So one fun question now. Like in the international circuit, you're known as the player with the bandana. So tell us the story behind this bandana thing.
Yeah. Growing years between 2003, 2004, 2005, that period, we saw a lot of sports persons wearing bandanas, like Roger Federer, and, many tennis players. Apart, not just for tennis players, even movie stars and everybody, and you used to have long hair and the bandana. So that was a trend, and yeah, I was also doing the trend back then. So as by 2006, I started tapering down on my hair, the length of my hair, not on purpose, but I think evolution, and I was just losing out hair. But a lot of people remembered me, the guy with the long hair and the bandana. So Sharath Kamal or table tennis became synonymous with this identity. So long hair and bandana. So a lot of people, even till date, they just presume that I have long hair, and they also presume that I'll be roaming around with the bandana around everywhere. I just have the bandana when I'm playing. So I never took out the bandana because it is my identity. It's my identity. It's something which everybody recollects on. So, and that's something which that helps me go into a match mode. Like it's just those match rituals which help you get into focus. Okay, now I have the
Does it have any luck factor like the red handkerchief of Virendra Sehwag?
There is. If you look at it, generally I try to match it with the color, and we do have a lot of superstition on that ways. That's something which goes on and on, because the superstition does nothing actually, but it's just in the mind. Oh, if I have this, I'll do it well. Many times after the match, I'll be thinking, oh shit, I should change it into that one. Maybe I don't want that.
So, Sharath, being a senior most player in the team, were you feeling any pressure of performance?
No, not really, because even I was also one of the senior most members of the contingent, so a lot of people were looking up to me. Even the sailors, the badminton people, fencing, everybody. They were looking up to me. So and they were trying to speak to me and trying to understand, okay, what it took for to get here, and how do I handle pressure. Many times these are questions from the youngsters on how do I handle pressure, how do I stay motivated, and these kind of questions. So that personally didn't add much pressure to me, because I'm pretty much used to being the oldest one on the team, and I feel that's a little bit of my responsibility also, to help the youngsters find their way. Probably a few words here and there will help them in finding their own path, or motivating them.
So now they are considering your name for Khel Ratna also, we have heard. So what was your response when the Padma Shri was declared?
I was actually, I didn't expect it that year. the year before I was expecting, and I didn't get it. So I thought that's something going to be very, very difficult because you don't know how these awards are being given. It's something which is, which is beyond people around whom you know. So I was not expecting it so much. But I think when I got it and a lot of reporters started talking to me, that's when I actually understood that this award is given not just for my performance, over the years. It's also about how much I've contributed to the sport. So it's only because I've been there for such a long time that this award is being given, and the recognition is of a civilian award. So it's not a sporting award, but it's a civilian award. That actually put table tennis also into the spotlight, where table tennis is still growing. I wouldn't say it's come to the best, but it's in one of the best years. But I still feel we still have a long way ahead. And that Padma Shri award was, I personally, I take it like this, as it's not for me, but it's for the sport. And I think everyone in the sport felt really proud that one of us, is a Padma Shri award.
So I have, like 2 years back, I guess there was a program like Selfie with Sharath from your company, our company where you work, Indian Oil. So in that program, I've seen that this all these kuti paddlers, admiring you and trying to imitate the way you look or the way you play the game. And there was a table where they were playing. And when you went and played with them, they were like overjoyed. And one girl, she got a point against you and she was jumping up down there. So what are your thoughts about this upcoming TT Battalion, like table tennis battalion? A lot of youngsters are into it now. So what is your thoughts for them?
As I said, a lot of sports, which were not in the spotlight recently are, being watched, being played. That's thanks to the exposure that the sport has got, and the performance of the players also matters a lot. So as role models, we can inspire a lot of youngsters. And for the youngsters, I would always say, we should always aim very high, because only when you aim for the stars, you could probably end up in the sky. But when you aim for the sky, you'll only be on the treetop. And when you actually aim for the treetop, you would not get off the ground. Because when you are able to push yourself beyond your own limits, beyond the benchmark you set for yourself, only then can you get the best out of yourself. So even for the youngsters, I'm pretty much sure there's a lot of talent and a lot of promises the younger generation are showing and are doing. And I'm also quite sure that they're not looking at me as the benchmark, but they are looking at me as, okay, if Sharath has been top 30 in the world, I want to be top 20 or probably top 5 in the world. So that's something which I also tell them, but I'm pretty much sure they are looking at it in those lines. So sport in India has a great future, and with administrators like Sriram sir and many other coming in, staying in the sport, I think that's something which is very, very important. Many players, they play the sport and they move out of the sport without doing much help. But I think people like Sriram sir has stayed in, and they are doing a lot of help, because as players, they know what are the requirements. So I think that's something which, which is very, very important, that we can give back to the sport.
Okay, Sharath. So is your daughter or son into the sport? Are you bringing them in?
Daughter, not so much. Son is forced again, my father. He has no option.
So those were the questions for the session. Mikla ma'am, do we have any questions in the chat box?
Yeah, we have one about women in table tennis. One question from Kavita.
Okay. I guess women in rowing she meant. So
why not?
Yeah.
Also, she's asked. So before you go,
I think
before
women in rowing too. Yes, women in rowing too. That's also, yes.
clear on my daughter. So this is because I just wanted to explain this because my daughter she was also coming to the club and she was being part of the practice. But all of them started asking, especially the parents started asking her, saying, when will you play like your father? And she didn't like listening to this question. So she said, I don't want to come to the club. So there's no gender difference here. There's no racial discrimination or sorry, not racial discrimination, sexual discrimination here. It's just that she doesn't want to stay in my shadows. So
Okay.
yes, sir. Over to you, sir.
Sriram sir.
Well, about the women's program, we do have a lot of women rowing in our country, but we have taken them to so many tournaments. We have won junior golds and junior Asian level, but we are still behind men. I don't know. It's a long road again for the women to really come in and do well in the Asian level and any other. Sorry. I think I was muted. There is a women's program for us. We have women rowing in various centers. We have women participating in junior Asians as well as Asian championships. We have done well. We have won medals also, but we could do much better with gender equity and the core of IOC's program now, International Olympic Committee. If we don't have a women's program, we can't field the men's team. That is where it has come to now for us. So unless and until we buck up and do well in the women's program, it will be very difficult for us to go ahead and do well in the men's, because it's not going to be easy for us to field all the men, because the women have to be equal. That is where they are coming to now, as per IOC current thinking. And that's where it stands. The women are there after they win a few medals and they get their admissions in colleges and they get a good job. They just paper off and go. The thing is, we have to stay in the sport for quite long to win something. And it's not easy for them to stay for too long also, because our sport is an extremely strenuous sport. It's a sport where you have to spend a lot of time. So unless and until you are willing to sacrifice and go that long road, it's not easy for you to make a mark.
There's a question for Sharath here. It's about his fitness regime. You don't look 40. Apart from yoga, what is your regimen?
For the Olympic Games, I was almost working for 12 hours a day. So I started my day at 5 in the morning because trying to get tuned to the Japanese timing, because we were not allowed going into Japan prior to that. So I know that we'll have a 10 o'clock game in the morning. So 10 o'clock is 6:30 in the morning. So I woke myself every morning was at 4:45 to 5. I wake up. I have my morning prehab or pre-session. I have my warming up for almost 45 minutes to 1 hour. Then have my training sessions. Come back, eat, rest a little bit. Get back to the gym at 11 o'clock. Come back, eat, rest again 3 o'clock. Get back to the table tennis hall. Practice for 2-3 hours. Eat and rest. Again go back to the ground at 7 o'clock. Have our outdoor fitness. Finish by 8. So my day starts at 5 and ends by almost 8 o'clock. I finish my training, stretch, cool down, get to the bed by around 10:30. So I was completely almost for two and a half months before the Olympic Games, this was the program. And prior to that, it was more or less like I spent at least like 8 to 10 hours in a day with table tennis. So that's the amount of work I put in, and that was why I was supremely fit for the Olympic Games. And it was a plan that was made 2 years ago. So this was how we wanted to get into the Olympic Games, and that's exactly what it did. And also there's one more question I saw that about mental conditioning.
Mental conditioning, yes.
It's very, very important. I think as much as we are able to physically train ourselves, mental conditioning is also done on an everyday basis. Many people think, okay, why don't we do well in the matches when you can do well in the practice? It's because we don't take that pressure in the practice, So you either make practice like a match, or you make the match like a practice. Match, you can't make it like a practice because you want to have the results. So your mind can't accept it. You want to win at any cost. So in the practice, you have to win at any cost. So that's how you condition yourself, and getting yourself through the grind, putting no excuses onto whatsoever. So yeah, at least I personally have some cheat days, and sometimes I go easy on myself. If you look at Virat Kohli, there is no cheat day. On all 7 days, he is sticking to his plan. So how much of mental conditioning he should be having? So that's something which, as sports persons, we get to learn.
Yeah. There's a question for Sriram here. In sports like rowing, from a systemic perspective, what would be the quickest route to be able to compete and consistently beat the best teams in the world?
Well,
Sorry, sir. Before that, there's no quick route. There's a process. We need to follow the process.
the process is long. It's not a small process. It's an amazingly long process. Olympic cycle, we call it 4 years. So the training starts 4 years, and and the camps are all very long drawn out. We have hardly any off time for them to go back to their families. And in rowing, in men's events, we are doing very well because of the Indian Army. The Army has camps. It's mostly the Army people, 99.5% Army men who are representing India men's event. The women's event, civilians come in and participate, but they come up to one level and they taper off. As you said, no? As I have already said, they don't put in the time. A lot of time is needed, and after they achieve whatever they wanted to get, mainly admission in medical college, admission in engineering college, because of the sports quota, they just stop off. So if the basic, it has to come from inside. That like Kamal is an amazing guy. The way he is spoken today is top class. It's not easy to have a person, and also a person who can articulate and get things across. So it's very, very difficult for the women, especially till now, for them to hang on for long enough to see medal, because it is not going to be easy at world level. We are nowhere at world level in rowing. Rowing is a white man's sport. It's come to us because of the Britishers. Left behind a legacy and went, and we have picked it up from there. Only now China, after all the big noise they have made, are doing somewhat good in world rowing, because of the amazing infra and the plan they made. I know years when Chinese coaches used to come to big championships, used to come take notes, take photographs, and go back. They worked on it and they made a big plan. For us, it's not easy just to find to get a medal. It's a very long, drawn out process. We are doing it. We will get somewhere. Let's see.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I guess there is another question for Sriram sir. That how did you manage to don so many caps, managing 4 companies, sportsman, etc.?
Actually, it's a big oscillation. The same screen is open. The RFI screen is there. I keep attending to mail. Then my company screen is there. I had also replied to my company mail. And if anybody comes to my office, come home. Basically, federations are not like cricket federation. My federation operates from my home. We don't even have a big office. The national federation operates from the secretary's house. It's also convenient in one way, but in many ways, it would be, you can say it's a constraint. It has to have an office by itself. But since I operate from Chennai, I have to control all India. So because of the communication reach which we have, we do it sitting at home. So it's not an easy thing. It's an amazing challenge to spend the time, sit here and operate and control my company and control my personal finances and personal issues, as well as control RFI. But I managed it. I've taken the pressures. So let's see how long it will go.
Very inspiring. Very inspiring.
Any other questions?
There are a few more questions. Radhika?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. There is a question for Sharath. Like, which match you felt that unexpectedly it was easily won by you?
I wish every match is easily won. But that doesn't add to it, no? Like when you guys are watching it, there has to be some spice in it. So I don't remember the match which I unexpectedly won it easy, because you only remember the matches which you fought well, and people remember that. Yeah, well, there's one match where, let's say, the Commonwealth Games finals team championships against Nigeria. When actually it's unfortunate. See that's something. The players got injured because they didn't have so much time to recover from the semifinals, and they were cramping and they were a bit injured. A couple of them. That made it quite easy for us. Actually winning that gold medal didn't give us so much of a pleasure, the way we should have won it. But end of the day, it's sport, and that's how it is.
Sir, another question for you, Sriram sir. Mr. Mani is asking, India has started doing well after youngsters from Bharat took to sports in larger numbers. So why not look at Bharat for rowing too? Beyond India, which is what the metros are.
Yes, Mr. Mani, it's like this. Rowing is a equipment-based sport, and equipments are not made in our country. World-class equipment if you want, and if you give bad equipment, you can't row well. There are some companies making equipments here, but it's not world-class. So unless and until you plan and have world-class equipment, which everybody else is using, you cannot really do well in sports, and that costs money. So the biggest constraint for us is the cost of equipment. First thing. Second thing is going into other zones away from metros. Good. Very important is we need good waterways close to roads, close to habitation, and we also need a good safety measure. Our sport, there is a lingering fear of drowning. You can capsize anytime. When we actually involve a new center or when we initiate a new place, the first and foremost thing is we see safety measure. Whether there is a boat, whether there are divers, whether there are enough and more equipment for them, at least for them to come to the bank and save themselves. Unless and until these basics are there, we won't even step into the place. So, like I said, these are issues, big issues are there. We are trying to solve it one by one. For us, even to have a few clubs open or a few rowing centers open every year is a very big plus point. So that's where we stand right now.
Okay.
I saw another question from one Ms. Kavita. Do we have women in the Indian Army? Yes, women are there in the Indian Army. They are officer grade. They are in the officer cadre. And people who really row for us are not really the officers. The people who really are the soldiers. Okay? And there was a time when officers were rowing. But soon the soldiers started beating the officers. So there was enough and more of issues there. But then now it is only the soldiers who train. Civilians also were training in various clubs. They come into the national camp, but finally the best have to be chosen. So whoever rises up to the top, the selection committee chooses them. In spite of all this, we have seen a few civilians do very well and get into the India team. Great credit to them. Similarly, the women, they are mostly the women are from private sector. They are from homes. So these are the constraints we have. So within these constraints and the rules, we are able to operate and try to extract a medal. It's an amazing thing for us.
So there was another question which was from Ms. Kavita again. Is there any fitness regime like in other sports?
For rowing?
Yeah.
Wow. Rowing is a power endurance sport. You use all the muscles in your body compared to what generally the people think is just using hand. A lot of legs and a lot of back. And you need a lot of lung power. So if you take any sport after water skiing and marathon, rowing comes up as one of the top ranking sports for use of where you need to be very highly fit. And every day a rower, if he's training, must be covering around 15-20 kilometers on the water up and down. So you need to be very, very fit. And fitness just not these fitnesses just don't come automatically. You have to train for very long periods of time in the water. There are times when we get about 4:30, 5 o'clock, boat out before dawn. and we are out for training, and we come back at 8, have breakfast, go to sleep, again get up at 3, 4 o'clock, go back and come back at 7. So that is a tough regime. People don't last because they feel, going up and down and trying to get something. It's so difficult and so stressful on them. So physical fitness, very, very important for us. Right now, we are going also into the medical aspect, finding out whether really to train X or Y is going to be beneficial. We have a lot of sports science inside involved. So we are using a lot of sports science also to train our athletes, to select and train our athletes.
Sharath, one question from me to you. Like, how do you keep your social media presence so lively? Every other day we see a video or a post from you, like, which is not only related to your sport, but quite interesting for the viewers or audience of your post. And I've seen that you reply to questions also being asked to you in social media. Sharath, you are muted.
Yeah, I think that's a place where I can be connected to my fans. There are a lot of people, a lot of fans who would like to know more about me and like to interact with me, and that's a place where I try and be active. Yeah, it's also need of the hour, I would guess, because everybody's in there, and so a lot of the reporters also pick up news from that, so they really don't have to bother talking to me. So yeah, that's also a way. I think these are there are some job description which a sports person should have, and talking to the press, media, and to the fans is also part of it, which is very, very necessary for the future generations to come, because I can probably inspire 100 more people to pick up the sport, so which is doing a lot for the sport.
Thank you, Sharath, and thank you, Sriram sir. Over to you, Meghale ma'am.
See, one other question, ma'am. In India, how and when will we see a reduction of direct political influence in sports?
Yeah.
I rather not answer this question, but then if somebody wants
a
I think I passed this question.
I think that itself is an answer, right? Anyway, thanks so much, Sharath and Sriram and Radhika too, for spending your valuable time with us for more than an hour here. And there are several takeaways, I must say. It was so inspiring, and you've earned the love and support of all the people of our nation. And it's not only that, people look up to you as role models, because there are so many incidents which you said, like children who want to enter the sport, they will, take a lot from what you have said today. So people are watching, it is streaming live, the recording will go also. I hope many budding sports people watch this and take back, whatever you have said here. Thanks so much. And the next event, the next Ask the Expert event is something radically different, which is on September 12th, which is, it is about Bharatiyar. It is on the centenary death anniversary of Subramanya Bharati Endoru Asan. Dr. Elango is going to talk about it. So please join in, and thank you, participants. There are so many regulars here, so many from Indian Oil, so many from PSPB, and so many from everywhere, all over the world. I must say, I can see a few people from Malaysia also. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much. And please like our Facebook page, and the link for the registration is there. Please do join in for all the Ask the Expert sessions. Each and every session is radically different from each other. So anything under the sun, we discuss. So thank you once again, and have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Meghale, Senthil, and Radhika. And thanks, Sharath. Very nice interacting with you, listening to you, basically. I enjoyed listening to you. Thank you very much.
Me too, sir. Thank you.